Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back for the final day. This is day 10 or August 8th. It's been a great Olympics. And on that note, I'm going to pass it on to Frank, some opening comments and some thoughts maybe. Are you on mute, Frank? Mute.
I'm here. Right. Okay, well, I won't go through the GAC stuff. Again, I don't know if any of you will manage to join in on the session earlier today, but I gave a good 25-minute blast on what GAC was about. If you didn't tune in, can I suggest you try to get a hold of that, because it explains exactly what we're trying to do and who's doing it at the moment. What I'm looking forward to in this afternoon from you, as I requested a couple of times already, is what are the key coaching takeaways, the learning takeaways that you've taken from these games that you believe will change the future of coaching, and all the better if you're going to do the changing yourself. You mentioned numbers and statistics, Jimson. I'm actually from the European Athletics Coaches Association position, pretty impressed that in the rankings this time round, Italy at number 2 with 5 golds. Poland, we should never be surprised at Poland being up there, because historically they've always been pretty strong in Europe. But 4 golds, 2 silvers and 3 bronze, I think was really impressive in 4th place. Then for the Netherlands to get up there with 2, 2, 3, 3. And then 10 to equal Norway and Sweden, both with 2 golds, both with 1 silver and 0 bronze. But on the other side of all that, I think we should be asking a question of what's happened to the people that we'd come to recognize as the real giants of Europe: Germany, France, and of course the United Kingdom. Neither of these countries enjoyed a particularly impressive games. Looking forward, Jimson, to 3 years from now, because the competitions in France it'll be as close as we can get for a long time, to have a home games. It'll be good for the UK. Very little travel. Germany, France, of course, having on their own home soil, and we've now got the emergence of these other countries. So I'm thinking that Europe could have a very powerful next Olympic Games. However, that's for me. I'm really looking forward to hearing your inputs, guys. Looking forward to that. And thanks again, Jimson. Over to you, Supremo.
Okay, well, thank you for the kind words. Before we get to the the overall medal count, coaching takeaways, let's talk about the marathon, because that was the final event of today. I watched it late last night. And okay, so we have Gunter back. Welcome back. I know you got a flight to catch, so I really appreciate making the time for this. For those who don't know Gunter, if you're first time joining, he's a world leader in endurance events coaching and high performance planning. Now he's the Ugandan Special Presidential Assistant in Education and Sport. So Gunter, for marathon, great to see Europe come 2nd and 3rd. And we also want to talk about the water bottle incident from France, but your thoughts first about the main event.
Thank you, Jimson. When we talk about Europe, I'm happy and surprised that Frank, Great Britain, still considers to be part of Europe. I had the impression you left us some time ago, but I'm happy to see that you still stick to Europe. I disagree also with Jimson saying that Europe did 2nd and 3rd, because Netherlands, Belgium, yes, but both friends are from Somalia, and there seems to be Somali training partnership which goes beyond into the competition. So they were very obviously cooperating. So Najee was helping Abdi and encouraging him, especially at the end of the race, to beat together the Kenyan children. So this was quite amazing that, being from Netherlands and Belgium, there was this independent cooperation by both being originally from Somali, and as far as I know, they even train regular together. Let's come to the race. Thanks to World Athletics, I have the data. So it was definitely a correct decision, using the signs of weather prophecy, that the race was sticked to 7 o'clock. The conditions were 26 to 28 Celsius. Humidity went on the other side down from 80 to 70, which is still pretty high. And we had, this was surprising this morning, we had a breeze, we had a wind, which made it definitely easier for the athletes to cope with the high humidity. So the WBGT was 24 to 26. So it was definitely a better situation for the men marathon. On the other hand, we had 106 participants, 76 made it to the finish line, so we had a dropout of 28%, which under the circumstances can be considered as normal. And there was, I spoke with the medical department, no serious case. Yes, athletes were exhausted, but this was accepted. On the performance side, 15, 17, 30, 53, halfway 105 was quite, let's say, not high pace, but good pace. What was surprising for me that Kipchoge, who managed in this race, and congratulations his back-to-back Olympic game victory, decided at 31 kilometers to end the story by giving a kick and taking the lead and building up a lead of 1 minute 20. I spoke to his coach, Patrick Sang, after the race and asked him why he did this early move at 31 kilometers. And the answer of Patrick was that Kipchoge felt prior to the 30 relatively lack of space. So there was another athlete on his tail. And even when Kipchoge spoke to this athlete to give him some more space, there was no change in that behavior. So Kipchoge simply decided to make space himself by going away from the field and taking this run home. So we had Kenya, Kenya, Netherlands, Belgium, Kenya. The Spanish one is also originally from Morocco. I'm again pleased with Japan being number 6. The first original Belgium was the first original European athlete with Cornelius, who was 10th in a respectable 2:12 and 2:13. In overall, I was not surprised, but again, not really pleased how many countries, not only in Europe, but the trend started in Asia, are using African athletes to be presented. And I think when we continue this trend, we are killing the European talent development. I would not be interested to train hard when I know that there is all the time the risk that the Ethiopian or another Kenyan athlete will represent the country. So I think that this is not helping the national development. Overall, I really enjoyed the race. I spoke with Katz, who has designed the race. It was designed to be fast, and it was definitely excellent organized by our Japanese friends. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Gunter, for that recap. And I was really impressed that there was plenty of water stations and aid stations, ice bags. I noticed a lot of athletes are taking ice and putting it under their cap, and in some cases it would fall off. But I think it was organized. And I think it was good to see no major, health casualties. So I was happy for that. I think I guess we can talk about importing athletes here. Maybe we can save that for after this talk here. Anybody have a comment on the marathon? Anybody watch it? Anybody? There's no comments. I think it was expected. I think everybody was rooting for Kipchoge, but still, this was the Olympics. Nothing's guaranteed. Okay, well, let's quickly talk about the importing the athletes. I mean, I have no problem when some child moves to Europe at age 8, fleeing war. I have no problem like Salpeter in the women's yesterday. She's African, but she married an Israeli, so that counts to me as a true Israel citizenship. But I agree, there are a lot of imports or people buying, countries. Your thoughts, Gunter? What do you?
Jimson, I agree with you. If there is a social background, yeah, we talk about globalization, we live globalization. Frank will be happy to hear that I couldn't find a German wife, so I have an Asian wife since 25 years, surprisingly. So we live globalization, but I see countries on our marathon or in the distance running, which have been winning in Asia 18 medals, and none of them, not a single one of them was originally from that country. So there is, beyond the social reasons, somebody to change the country and then get citizenship, there is still a kind of, I would being close to say it is almost human trafficking. And I'm pleased that recently we have changed the duration of being not allowed to compete after changing nationality, but I still believe that this is a major threat for the development of distance running.
I agree. Rita, you have your hand up.
Something quite interesting of the individual women's gymnastics was won by Suni Lee from the USA. She thanked everybody in their input, but she didn't mention her country at all. And then the question was asked that, do Olympians use or owe their countries? And another very important question or statement was made that patriotism coexist with self-serving goals. And so but being coming from Africa, I can have in a way a lot of sympathy with a lot of African athletes going to European countries for better living conditions, better training facilities, better backup, etc. But that is an argument maybe for a later stage. But I just thought that was quite interesting that that is the way people see it nowadays.
Okay. Frank, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to follow up on this, I think it's really quite an interesting area, this, but it's been interesting for quite some time. And I'm really not sure if the sporting bodies in general have been very quick to understand what could be happening here. You mentioned trafficking, Gunter, because that's ultimately what it is. Qatar, for example, I'd like to know just how many athletes in the Qatari team actually came from Qatar in the first place. And I bet it's not.
Bahrain, don't forget Bahrain.
And Bahrain likewise. But coming back to Rita's from South Africa, and that she will have spotted already that there could be a very clever device here if we're talking about getting married to people from other countries and then making them members of our own team. Because in South Africa, there is a large body of opinion that said it's okay for guys to have several wives. But there's a big move now, actually, in South African Parliament to extend the same privilege to women, so that women can have several husbands. So it seems to me you could actually, just by intermarrying here, get a world-class track and field team just like that.
Frank, can I inform you that we have already gone to the next step in Uganda? So you may have noticed we have a Dutch coach. And I'm pleased to inform you that the Dutch coach has married a Ugandan. They have fathered the child, and you will not be surprised to read next that he will get the Ugandan citizenship.
Okay. Peter Thompson, comments?
Yeah, just a couple of things here. I'm not sure, going back to Frank's situation there with Qatar, Mutaz Essa Barshim was actually born in Qatar. His father came from Sudan. His father actually was a race walker on the Qatari national team. So Mutaz Barshim was actually born in Qatar. But going back to the United States, which is where I'm based now, obviously, there's a big issue that in the United States, the armed services, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force compete against each other with a ferocity which is just incredible. And Dan Brown approached the Army saying, well, currently the World Athletics situation is if an athlete lives in a country for 3 years, they can automatically compete for that country without a waiting period. And so when students do a 4-year American scholarship on an athletic scholarship, the Army picked them up, and their whole team, their world-class team, was Kenyans plus one Caucasian US race walker. But apart from that, all the athletes, male and female, were Kenyan. And it's acting like a Qatar in the United States. It's acting like a mini country, because they can give, once you join the US Army, you automatically get US citizenship. So here they are, they've got US citizenship, they're immediately available for international competition. And we had a situation of 2016 where 5 of the 9 available spots for US male distance runners went to Army athletes. And so, you know, Gunter, this is what you're saying, it distorts the development of the athletes in the country.
I think that, Peter, I'm really glad you've mentioned that. And I think this underlines the point I'm trying to make here, and that is that actually we've not taken this seriously enough early enough. And I think it's about time that we tighten this up completely.
Christine, comments? You're on mute.
Hi, well, so obviously in the UK, we kind of like, I think we buy in people. So like we have the Ofili sisters, or Semba and Ofili. We've just got Nicole Jürgen, and I know their parents are from our country, but they had no affiliation to us until people went over there and spoke to them and discussed the issue. Now, I can't remember his name. Is it, he ran for Kenya, and then he came to the USA and he ran in the 800. I can't remember his name. He's a middle distance runner, very successful, won quite a few medals for the USA. I do understand. I think it does stunt the growth of your national team. However, I think what it did, well, in the UK, what it did is it motivated people to train harder. It motivated coaches to be better, because for me personally, I saw it as a challenge. I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's fair, because when we look at the European records, the records are going, like Hassan has broken numerous records for the Netherlands. And will anybody get near her records? I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. But she's been allowed to do it. And it's been a drip, drip, drip over the last, at least the last 15 years. Even when I was competing, there were people running for other countries. But unless, I mean, the national bodies want success, don't they? So if those people are going to bring success to them, they will have them in their teams. And I mean, we can sit here and say things, but you're judged on your performances at the championships. Like Great Britain have done appallingly. So there is going to be a big discussion about why we have done poorly. United States, I remember in the United States, not in 2012, but the 2008, when they didn't do as well, there was a big debate about why they didn't do well. And actually the next Olympics, they excelled in they came back to where they usually were. And that's because they had a big, massive overhaul. Now, I think our individual countries, we need to make a decision. Do you want to have homegrown talent and develop that talent? Or is it all about the medals? Because if it's all about the medals, then they're going to continue to do this. If it's about homegrown talent, then we have to find ways of coaching them and improving our coaching infrastructure so that we will get elite athletes. Because there are elite athletes in every country. There's elite athletes. America, you've got the advantage, but there are elite athletes, but we just got to find them.
Okay, Kevin Ankrum had his hand up first, and then Gunter after. Kevin?
I'll try to summarize as much as possible. In Bahrain, I was one of the starters of bringing in athletes from other places, but that wasn't the original intent. It was to basically get athletes in the Army, get them supported so we could actually pay them more, have a support system. And that kind of changed around now to where they went out and started buying athletes from different countries, which I'm not a pure, from a medalist perspective, I don't really agree on that. But obviously, buying for medals like Qatar's actually slowed down some, but there are countries like Bahrain, Turkey's probably the worst of them all doing that. But what I think, and my point is what I think we're starting to see here is because the global community of the world, and I'll go back to Ireland, you're going to see a whole bunch of Nigerian athletes that are Irish. And one of them right now is a 200-meter girl who's probably one of the best girls that ran for Texas, that was a world junior medalist now. You know, you're going to see relay teams. It's going to be an all you know, Nigerian or imports, so to speak. But those people actually moved to Ireland and transitioned the proper way. And so we can't blame those. But I think those that are buying the athletes, you know, I think that has stopped to some degree. The IAAF or World Athletics has addressed that. But, you know, it's the same thing with European cross country. And Christine, you'll know this as well. Huge debates over European cross country issues around having, you know, Turkey brought in all foreigners basically and ran for their team, and they didn't even live in Turkey. So there's big debates on this. So I think that is slowly being addressed, but I don't think it's going to stop the immigration of people around the world going to different places. It's just, I think the world is becoming more of a conglomerate of movements, and we're just going to see more of those people moving around different countries and competing for that country.
Yeah, good points, Kevin. Gunter, then Peter Eriksson after. Gunter?
I understand and partly support the position of Rita, considering that if you're number 5, 6, or 7 in your country in Africa, and you will never make it to the Olympic team, and you get the opportunity to make a living and generate income in a different country, that this is definitely an interesting challenge for you. But I would, maybe I'm too old school, but I had a situation, 2 situations. Number one, I was offered the head coach position from a country, and my complaint was they wanted to see medals in Olympic Games, but they had only 1 potential athlete. And when I told them that this is not enough to work seriously for Olympic Games, they told me, no, Gunter, you know Africa, you have been so long in Africa. We give you 15 blank passports. You travel in Africa and you come back with 15 athletes, and we have a new national team. Don't be surprised. I refused this, and I made myself in another place pretty unpopular in a country which was practicing this kind of import. I asked these government people in a public meeting if now, this was not in running in track and field, this was in badminton, if they have a gold medal in badminton in Olympic Games, considering that the whole structure, the athlete is not from the country, the coach is not from your country, and then they play the national item of your country. Are you proud? I had never, was 200 people in front of me. This was an Asian country. Nobody looked at me. Everybody was somewhere else. But I was not surprised that next day in the newspaper about the conference, I was not even mentioned, and I was not invited again for the next 10 years. So I think that also something like national pride. If I have an athlete which was purchased to represent my country, and I see him winning a medal, I personally would not be proud about it.
Okay, a couple hands up. We'll do Peter Eriksson, then Frank Dick, and then Rita after, in that order. Frank?
I believe that it was, I can't remember what year it was, in Nigeria, when they had the nationals. If you show up to Nigeria, they gave you a passport, and I think half of the team was American at the time. That was one comment. The other comment was about the Middle East countries like Qatar and United Arab Emirates. They don't even grant citizenships for somebody born in the country. I have several people I know that's born there. So they have to make specific exemptions to for the high jumper, for example, to become a citizen of the country. So I think it's depending on when it is Middle East countries.
Okay, Frank, then Rita.
Yeah, the thing has been mentioned already, but I'd like to underline it for everybody. There will be a fallout for this. You will, because you disenfranchise the youngsters who are national, who are trying to who spend their lives trying to get all the way to Olympic Games. The moment you deny them the final strike because somebody's been brought in, that must have a repercussion through the country, and it will discourage kids from going into sport. And I think we must be very, very careful of that. The other side, of course, about this business of importing people is that we tend to export quite a few just to get them fit to go to the games. So we send quite a few athletes across the United States, or send them off with coaches in other countries, so the coaches in the other countries can do the work that our coaches can't do for them. And the reason that our coaches can't do it for them has been highlighted by Christine already. We don't have the right coach education program to prepare coaches to deal with high performance programs. And I think that's got the two things have got to go together. We've got to understand that we've got to create the right climate for children, for young people to grow, to represent the country. And on the other side of that, we've got to make sure that our coaches are properly prepared so that kids don't want to leave the country and go elsewhere. They want to be looked after by our own coaches. That may sound very nationalistic, but we're either talking about flying our flags here and representing our countries and being proud to put on that shirt, or we abrogate all of that simply to get the medals.
No, good point. Rita, and then Gunter after. Rita?
I would just like to mention that I sit on the other side of the coin, where in my country, because of the unstable political situation, a lot of Europeans and people of color that are well qualified and looking for a better life. So what is happening at the moment is that in Scotland, in the Scottish rugby team, the UK rugby team, the Japanese rugby team, and all over in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand especially, you'll find a lot of South African athletes representing their countries because of the political instability, and they have immigrated to their countries. What is happening in South Africa, it's leaving a big negative hole as far as the national rugby team, the national athletics team. I mean, people are leaving and there is nobody to fill their shoes immediately. So we're sitting with a weakened situation where people are representing other countries. So yes, it is nice for them and they go and they have a nice life and they represent. It's a negative for your development as well as for ours.
Yeah, great. Gunter, comments on that? You're on mute. You're on mute still.
Keep it that way. Yeah.
Okay, I keep it that way. Thank you. But we still consider you not to be European, so you are. We try to understand you. We try to understand you. Let me close this with a positive experience I have made in that area. Joshua Cheptegei, who won in this Olympics the 5,000 gold and who lost the gold in 10,000, who made the silver. He was first time really exposed in the Eugene Junior World Championships, where he won the long distance race. And I happened to be there working already with Uganda, and I witnessed that he was offered to change nationality with a prize bag of $1 million. I was shocked, but I was pleased to see the reaction of Joshua at that time, telling this person, the trafficker, I'm not interested in that money, I'm proud to be Ugandan. And I think we should also consider this part, that some of our athletes consider patriotism still as a value, and they will prefer to stay in their country even if they get this crazy amount of money offered, and then they will try to make their living in their own country.
Good point. Just to go back to Christine's comment about the USA, it was called Project 30 that back then, that they were trying to aim for 30 medals for the next Olympics. And now I think in this past Olympics, they won 26 medals. So if we've exhausted the topic on the import athletes topic, and I remember back in 2012, we had the whole plastic Brits comment? Remember back in 2012 when we had some Americans come to England and they were chastised by the British media. And I remember one time the media interviewed, I think it was Tiffany, and they've asked her if she knew the words to the national anthem, you know, God Save the Queen, right? So that was a bit of an embarrassing thing. But yeah, this import athlete topic is just going to be a hot topic. And like you all said, it's going to get worse and worse as we get along. And where there's money, we're going to have problems. That's what my take is. So on a similar topic, I want to talk about the ROC, the Russian Olympic Committee. In the overall Olympics, they were third with 71 medals behind the US and and China. But in athletics, they only won 2 medals. They only won women's high jump and another medal in the pole vault. Anybody want to comment on the fairness of having these, these Russian athletes compete in these Olympics? Anybody want to open up the can of worms? Because that was a topic we had yesterday or 2 days ago. That Michael Bennett, you're the one who asked for it. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, definitely, it definitely is very interesting having the Russian team to be banned at a country, but to have the different athletes to really compete under another association or in this case, the Olympic Committee. So it's very very unique, and I want to ask you all's opinion because it seems kind of odd to have the country as a whole be banned, but then to have a fair amount of athletes there, then to be able to represent their country, even if it's under a different name.
Yeah, it was a very strange Olympics about that. I know they have the same colors. I don't know. Anybody want to comment on the ROC issue? Anybody? Peter Thompson, hand up first, then Rita after.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Jimson, that I think for myself, I have no objection to the athletes being there if they've subjected themselves to the standard testing and everything else. I think that the issue I have in this Olympics is that the IOC is, I think, trying to stroke the Russian Olympic Committee and maintain the relationships there. And when we have the World Championships, I don't see any reason why these athletes can't compete along with refugee teams or whatever, because they're people, you know, the World Athletics ANA, athletes of no affiliation. I think that's what it should be. And that way it's not, they wouldn't show up in a medal table then only as ANA. ANA would embrace other than the Russian Olympic Committee. So I think here in Tokyo, we've actually given a platform for Russia to say how good we are.
Right. Okay. Rita, comments on that?
Very short. I think that I feel for the athletes, because athletes and a lot of people in a country are sometimes, and in this case as well, political tools of politicians. And a lot of these athletes have never abused any illegal substances. They've been tested throughout, but they are kept out of the top and main competition because of politicians. Been there, done that. It is not a nice side to be on. So I've got sympathy with them, and I'm actually glad that they could have the opportunity to participate.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject because if we didn't have it by country, you'd have like 12 athletes from Kenya doing a marathon, another 12 from Ethiopia. And so we need to restrict it somehow. And so, yes, it's men and women, and by country, 3 per athlete, and then standards, and then there's world rankings. So we do need some rules, but you know, we've seen rules change over time. Kevin, your thoughts on that, or in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think ROC shouldn't be in, and I do really feel for their athletes, and they are used politically, but let's not overlook the point of there's athletes that I know that are in track and field that have systematically have benefited from the doping, and just because they were clean for 1 or 2 years doesn't make them in the right position now later on to be able to win medals that they're winning. And again, you know, retrospectively, again, I'll just reference Ireland, how difficult it is that years later, during my time in Ireland, we had 15 retrospective medals given to us. and most of them were because of Russian, because of race walking, how then those athletes miss their time in the light because of that, and don't benefit from winning at that time, winning 10 years, 5 years later. Again, it's terrible for the athletes, but the biggest thing to me is that those athletes that were in there were and have been systematically developed because of it, and just because they're clean for a year doesn't make them clean for the Olympic Games. And until they get that straight, I'm just very anti-doping. They should be banned until they get it straight. And unfortunately, everybody has to pay the price.
It's always been a fine line. I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere for all these silly rules. Even like reaction time, it's 0.100. I mean, why that number? Because it's a nice round number. Why is it 5 and is it 5 nanomoles?
Millimoles, yeah.
Millimoles, right? So it's in the number, right? Frank, thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really to come back to that. I agree with Rita in this, and I think Kevin was saying the same thing. If the athletes are clean, and they're proven to be clean, let's not penalize them because of the misdemeanors of the nation. But this business of the bit I don't get in all of this is that we're very convenient in our judgments and all of these things. It was all right for Gatlin, of course, to get caught twice and come back and win gold medals. Is that okay? Personally, I really don't think so. I really don't think so. But that's okay. Why? I don't know why, but that's okay. And I just think we get bound into convenience and what suits our country or what suits this. The bottom line in all of this is you've either broken the rules or you haven't. If you've broken the rules, you know what they are, you're out. But then in comes the lawyers and depriving people of their living. And we've been drawn this way and that way on this whole drugs thing. But it seems to me you should really come back to something that's pretty black and white. Did you violate the doping rules? You did, then you're out. Because that's the rules of our club. We all belong to clubs of some kind in the world. And you know that if you violate the rules, you're out the door. Well, let's keep it that way. Keep it simple. We make it far too complicated and far too convenient.
No, it's like a driver's license, right? Once you get 12 points, you're suspended, right? If I go speeding, it's 3 points. If I speed on a school zone, it's 9 points. So again, it's rules, and you follow them or you don't follow them. We have two plans. Michael Bennett first and Peter Eriksson second. Michael, you're on mute.
Distance lost at the boards.
Yeah, so one thing I'll mention here, it definitely is something where we need to make sure the athletes individually are not penalized. If they were able to compete as a member of the refugee team or anything like that, or even how they did in the World Championships, we had individual athletes were allowed to compete and even medal as a unaffiliated athlete. Those I think are fine. The only reason I kind of brought up that question was because it ended up seeming, even though the Russian Federation was banned by the IOC, that the country was still fully represented by having them just under a different flag and a different name. The other thing, and I will touch briefly on what Mr. Frank was saying, related to all the different numbers for the 5 nanomoles and the 0.1 of a second for the actual fast start time. Unfortunately, as we know in sports, there is a lot of research done, but unfortunately, most of the research is grossly underfunded and it's very, very small. So they make a lot of major assumptions that happen in the standpoint of the 1/10 of a second time for false starts, and then the same thing for the 5 nanomoles per liter for performance for female athletes. So a lot of times that things happen. Even from my research I've done, I've seen athletes be able to react faster, 1/10 of a second, when they're trained highly, especially when there's a light input. But it's pretty hard to discern one over the other.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Peter Eriksson, and then after Gunter. Peter, your thoughts?
I second Frank's thoughts about implementing the rules and follow the rules. What we see, I think, in many countries is it's based on convenience. Like, yeah, I ate burritos, so I only get 3 months instead of 2 years. Or we see athletes coming up with reasons for why they're testing positives. And if you are in Russia, you get 2 years. But if you're in European countries or North America, you probably can reduce that because of lawyers. And it should be a set time for what the penalty is. And we need to follow that. It can't be from east to west. It's a difference. And then the other thing is when it comes to the DSD and the transgender athlete that was also managed with nanomos, I think that's an arbitrary number that's pulling out of the air. Because if you take that arbitrary number and put it towards a woman, born woman, then they're 4 years suspended. So we need to have more research, more understanding on what this means, and also more education for coaches and the leadership on what does this mean with the DSD athlete, which is the toughest one, or transgender. Where does it fit in, and how is it going to look like? Because IOC has one number, World Athletics has another number for participation. And so it's fluctuating, and it can't be that way because it makes it so inconsistent.
No, exactly. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I was saying, like, out of competition testing, how fair is it across all countries? But Gunter, you had your hand up.
I had the privilege to be part of the first joint shared training camp between the reunited Germany, so means that for the very first time we had in Toluca a training camp with the GDR coaches and the coaches from Germany. And you may recall that we considered or still consider the GDR system as a Russian prone system, pretty much covered with anabolic steroids. I don't say that the West at that part was 100% clean, but it was a very interesting situation to be exposed now to these colleagues, which some of them admitted it openly and were then also, after regretting it, introduced in the system. I think 2 points. I'm pleased to see that an increasing amount of countries is, I don't know the English word correctly, criminalizing the doping offense. So it is not 4 years out. If you are in the medical team, if you are the physio, if you are the coach, and you get caught that you have been organizing, contributing to the doping of the athlete, you should go to prison. But as it applies for every murder who has passed his sentence, there should be also a time after you have done your sentence where you get a second chance. And I have sometimes the idea that we, how we say in Germany, you throw the child with the water out of the bathtub. I think we should be more strict by criminalizing it and not just keeping it in the system of 2 years or 4 years banned. We should hit hard on the system behind. There are no athletes who operate on their own. They always have a support system. And second, if we punish them, we should also be able to give them a second chance. And this is where I come back to the Russian athletes. If they have done their time and if they are properly controlled, why should they not participate again?
Yeah, good points. And I think great comment on the chat from Graham Harrison. I think every athlete who does sports never does any intention of doping. You know, I never thought about doping. I love the sport. I just want to win the medal or even come top 3. But I think what happens is that they get influence around them by coaches, agents, money, and that's what happens. I think we've seen this time again. But honestly, it's not the intent, the initial intent. Several great books out there. One by Dwayne Chambers, wonderful book. Some really good books about people who just who were guilty, admitted it, explained why, and then you carry the consequence. So definitely a lot of good reading. Frank, on that?
Yeah, but partly I agree with what's just been said, but partly I disagree strongly. I agree with the fact that if coaches, if officials are implicated in this, they should be punished pretty severely, in fact, more severely. But when it comes to the athletes, I don't think we should start putting blinkers on here. Athletes make their own decisions. Every one of us is influenced by so many things in life. But I'd like to think we make the right choices because the right choices to make. We do the right thing. And I think we can't sort of suddenly say, well, actually, they didn't actually make the decision. Somebody, come on, grow up here. They made the decision. They deserve to be disqualified. That's the end of that. However, you're right in the other context. We have to nail those other persons who've made that decision possible.
Yeah, not true. But then outside of testing positive, there's always the missed drug test controversy, right? We've seen Christian Coleman miss 3 tests. We had the Bahrain 400-meter runner miss 3 tests. I mean, you know, that's out of competition. Where do you draw the line? Do you want to really penalize someone who missed 3 tests? I don't know.
Well, but come on, we come back to the bit. If that's the rules, that's the rules. And you're told to make people very clear of where you are. And if you're not there, you've broken the rules. And again, Jimson, that's your decision, nobody else's.
Now, I would hire a personal chef, make me breakfast every day from 7 to 8 in the morning. And that's where my drug test window would be, 7 to 8. So if I'm at home, if I'm in shopping, you know, in the mall, at least that chef's responsibility is to call me and get my ass back into the house before the hour is up. That's what I would do, but I never been in that position. Anybody else on drug testing while we're still here? Piotr, comments on that?
As Frank said, athletes are responsible for their testing, and with the tools what they have now, with the mobile phones and changing where they are, they can blame only themselves if they're not there when they should be. And everyone know, if I sign it to be there, I need to be there. This is my responsibility. If you're losing, you're losing. That means you are gray. You are not black and white. You are gray. And when you're gray, everyone will be looking why you are gray. And you know, this all about the 3 missing tests. For me, this is people are guilty. I'm one of the athletes who lose a lot of things because of the doping fault. And this is like every time we're talking about if you clean, you clean. That's it. You know, a lot of people say it need to be life band, but you know, we need to give the people chance. And the chance is, if you give the people chance after 8 years, this isn't long enough to wait or maybe stop it. So that's, you need to make the balance. What is the punishment for? To be actually, you losing 2 Olympics or you losing 1 Olympics? Because, you know, people will play the time management with the doping if they know they can go on the 6th year and deliver what they want. And, you know, that's it. You are not, that's it. You go out.
Yeah, no, good points. Peter Eriksson?
I agree with Peter on what he said. I think that there is a slight problem here in these 3rd world countries where you don't have internet across the countries and stuff like that. But that's no excuse for having consistent testing anyway, but it's harder to do it. And I've seen it there where they have consultants doing the testing and then you notify the athletes 48 hours before that is going to be a random test. And that just falters the whole system when that happens.
No, definitely agree with that. Any more comments on the, back to you, Piotr?
Yeah, but now we can see actually pre-Olympics was the some country which was on the A list. The athletes who didn't pass the last 12 months, 3 VADA tests, they haven't been allowed to compete. If something happened, but it's question about to make more requirement for before Olympics or before the Worlds, or we are okay with the 3, because you know 3 is maybe not enough. Some country we know they have very good national governing body for the national independent governing body for doping control, and some country maybe not. And you know, all with WADA and everything, that's need to be probably the same for all from the east to west. And I believe now, and the Russian athletes are testing very hard to make actually go forward than other country.
No.
But, you know, if they athletes, if they make the test that they've been clean, why they shouldn't be compete?
Yeah. No, it's, well, I've followed track for, I guess, what, 40 years now, and I've seen the rules change so much in the last 40 years. So like even the false start rule, right? When I used to run, it was second false start, you were gone. Now it's 1 year gone. So expect to see more rule changes, you know, more and more. That's just the way, you know, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Okay, anything else on the drug issue or the country import issue before we move on? I think we've covered it enough, but like I said, we can, you know, we know what we got to do, and then we'll just keep on improving it. So, okay. We're going to talk one last thing about the relay. I think Giacomo wants to talk about the relay, the 4x1 relay, you know, Italy winning. You know, there are several ways the outgoing runner can start. They can do a 3-point stance, or they can do a 2-point stance. And then to receive it, you can do, you know, push pass, up sweep. Giacomo, you want a few minutes to talk about the Italy's successes in the relay?
Yeah, thank you, Jimson. Sorry for the confusion, but I'm birthday party of Viola's friends. Well, I think we have two key factors for the success in the relay for Italy. The first one is quite obvious. We have 980 sprinter, a 999 sprinter. These two are, of course, Jacobs and Tortu. Then the first leg sprinter is a 10-13 sprinter. And the third leg was ran by 200 meters with a personal best of 20:06, if I well remember. So for the first time in history, we have 4 very, very fast sprinters. So this is the first key factor. The second key factor is that after many, many years of fighting inside Italian coaches for sprinters, we finally have a group of coaches that agree to work together on a yearly basis. So we have a lot of camps during the year in Italy and outside Italy, mostly in Tenerife. So they could work on the changeovers more effectively than the last decades, I say. These are the key factors. What I had no time yet to have a deep insight of under the technical view, but a thing that I noted is that they use 2 different techniques waiting for the incoming runner. The first one used by the third leg, so the second changeover, was the traditional technique taught in Italy, with a standing position, with the trunk rotated towards the lane, and this implies the runner to let him fall in front and accelerate while rotating the trunk on the race direction. And when I was involved in the training of the relays, is the last time 5 years ago, unfortunately. This is the technique where the national coaches were pushing. I had more than one doubt on this technique because it introduces a lot of risk factor. So you have to have a perfect timing when the an incoming runner pass on the mark. You have to rotate yourself, let you fall around, and then accelerate. Instead, for the first time, I saw that the first changeover and the third changeover using the 3-point stand technique, like the American, for example. I don't know if this is because some years ago we had an American consultant for sprinters, but I like more this technique. And this is the one of the big difference, because I don't think there is no secret here. In Italy, we always worked a lot in the changeovers practice. The difficulties were because many coaches were not happy to dedicate so many time in the camps for training relays, and this is a pity, because until this year with Jacobs, we have to be honest, we had no chance at all to get a medal in 100 meters. But there were a kind of internal fighting about this. So now for the first time, we can have a serious relay program, a very good group of sprinters. And so this is, I think, is the key factor for the success of the Italy team.
No, definitely. I know Team Canada and Glenroy Gilbert, he uses the 3-point start consistently, just because that's how that's how they do it. Christine, any comments on the UK relay system, the team, before we move on?
We do the same. We do the 3-point start. I mean, I've watched the French system, and it is inconsistent. And also, when you think about where do you accelerate from? How do you accelerate? When you do 100 meters to run your time, where do you go? Your hands are on the floor, okay? And you can look between your legs when you put your hands in a 3-point start. There's no rotation. There's no chance of you driving out of your lane. It's more consistent. It's something that you've been doing all the time. So you're not having to teach a new skill. Some people, you may need to teach them how to accelerate more effectively and efficiently, but that's easy to do. But if you're doing it from a standing position, it's very, I mean, we do 2. So when we're doing run like 200s, 150s, whatever, I used to make my athletes stand up. But now I said, well, what's the purpose of that? Because when we do accelerations before we go down and outside, I said, you have more opportunities to practice the acceleration if you start every run in the down position. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know maybe 400 and 450 might not be advantageous, but the lower distance. So they do maybe 9 accelerations in a session, and the more efficient they become, the greater they understand the force productions, the greater they understand how to accelerate, the better their relay program will be. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, I think every country is getting ready in the next 3 years. I think the thing with the relay is that if you're, not an elite or world-class athlete, it's your chance to get to the Olympics, 4x1, 4x4. So I think, I know Canada does that. I know there are a lot of athletes who will never make the individual, relay final, let alone individual relay, an individual race, but having a relay is great because it's your chance to make the national team, get the Olympics, and in this case, maybe win a medal. So relays are important. And we talked yesterday about the order of the events. Maybe, the mixed relay should be at the end of the program, but who knows? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing another relay. I wouldn't mind seeing an 8-2-2-4, sprint medley, but you never know. I mean, we're going to have breakdancing next Olympics. We have skateboarding. So I'm open to any new events to make it more appealing for everybody. Okay, so I think I want to spend a little bit of time here left on the final topic of the program, and that's coaching takeaways, some key learning points. Like, what did you learn over the last 9 days with these calls? Frank, maybe I'll start with you, since the leader of this group. What were your key learning points and some takeaways from the whole week? And then we'll get Gunter after, or Gunter, we'll get you right after this.
Well, actually, it's a very specific one. Oh. I think that one of the things that's happened with these games is it's tested different countries and coaches' ability to be adaptable through the COVID period. And I don't think that the current fears and restrictions that we have with COVID at the moment are going to disappear very much over the next 2 to 3 years. I think there's going to be another big wave this winter. There's going to be more restrictions next year and so on. And so the takeaway I've got is, I'd like to have good, deeper conversations with coaches about the whole art, how they've represented their art of being adaptable through this period.
Yeah. Okay.
I think if I can there are three things you have to do with changing environment. You can either anticipate it, you can either create your own changes, or you can be adaptable. And in my opinion, I think I said this early on in the week, coaches have to be world-class at all three if they're going to take athletes to the highest level.
Okay, definitely. Gunter, comments or your coaching takeaways from this past 9 days?
You may be surprised that my personal takeaway is not, first of all, the medals Uganda won in this competition, but the technical aspect. I would like to use the opportunity, I hope Ibrahim is still here, and Moses, to thank our area development center in Nairobi, who has given me the privilege to work 1 week with our top female juniors, distance athletes, especially in the area of steeplechase, working with them on the clearance of the water jump. And for me, the learning was that if we cooperate with education of coaches, but in a practical way, learning by doing, which you cannot do by the actual predominant learning to talk about track and field. So when we have these practicals, we are able even to go the next step in the technical development of an event. And I am pleased that it was Uganda to have this historical step, to have an athlete who cleared all 7 water jumps in heats and final. I agree, the technique is not yet stable, but 4 out of 7 in the final were relatively okay. And I'm pleased and encouraged to see that we still can, in the distance events, now work on technique, which, as I mentioned it in one of my contributions, the neglected area still for our distance coaches.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe Rita can speak next. What were your coaching takeaways or learning points from these calls or in the Olympics in general?
Who's first?
Rita, you. I'm asking you because you get 100% attendance record for these 9 days.
Well, after 100% attendance record, I'll have to pick up something. I think that I'm not going to comment much on the COVID situation that Frank mentioned, but I do think that maybe less competing because of the COVID situation made some of the athletes perform better, especially some of the US athletes that had the huge competition, the Olympic trials. That is like a huge, like a mini Olympics, and they have to repeat it. And I think they had enough time to recover, whereas normally they most probably would have run in Europe to make more money on the Diamond League, which more of the European athletes did. But in any case, if I have to go back on the hurdles especially, and it was quite interesting that I had a look today at a few YouTubes, and it's always interesting to look at what the athletes said after their races, and they're all coming up now thick and fast on YouTube. And there was also a analysis of the 400 hurdles by the Californian lab, which some of the other Americans most probably know quite well. And it just like put the emphasis on what we've said. Christine and Frank has mentioned right in the beginning that to improve your speed, as we all know, we can do 2 things. You can improve your stride length and you can improve your the frequency of your legs moving. But it's quite interesting that both Warholm and Sydney improved their stride length. They made an interesting comparison that Warholm nearly runs in an overstride fashion. When he started doing that 2 years ago, everybody said he's overstriding. He's grown into it. he still looks like he's overstriding, and they actually took it one stride at a time. And what he did better than Benjamin is that he overstride to such an extent that he was closer to the hurdle, so he could shorten that last stride and hurdle like a sprint hurdler over the hurdle. Whereas Benjamin kept his stride length evenly throughout. He didn't have an interruption. So as far as that is concerned, I think that is why he went over the hurdle, especially the last two hurdles. You can see it quite clearly, more comfortable over the hurdles, and he could maintain his speed. As far as Sydney is concerned, she gave 14 strides, and I know there was some hurdlers previously on, I can't remember their names, that attempted 1 or 2 14s. She gave 14s. Now, according to her in a pre-race interview, she was planning to give 14 all the way through. I couldn't find a video good enough to see if she gave 14 all the way through, or maybe 15 on the last 2. I don't know. But she shook her head at the end, so I don't think she did 14 all the way. Again, she said they worked on improving her stride length. And if you look at her running and you look at Muhammad, you can see the difference. So what would I say to a coach if they go back a coach for the 400 hurdles? You have to have a plan to improve. I think what you have is most probably good enough, especially if you had an athlete at the Olympic Games or a youngster going there. But I would definitely work on plyometrics and methods to improve stride length, because if we look maybe 5-10 years forward, if one starts it, the rest is going to follow soon. Okay, so I think the stride length, and what was quite apparent in that video analysis is that the way Warholm used his contact foot at the back to really push off very hard, it really looks like he's going into an overstride. And it is obviously something that is going to be taught over a long period of time with plyometrics. I know what he does. He for example, one of his exercises, he would put hurdles like a certain distance and jump double feet over them. And then the next time he would put them a little bit further and a little bit further. So it is obviously not something that's going to come overnight, but if you have a plan to improve that, and I think that is most probably one of the biggest standouts that I see in the 400 hurdles in that sentence. Obviously the endurance, the speed, all the other, and then that technique to run like a sprint hurdler and the 400 hurdles is what going to take the times down even more, I think. If you look at Benjamin, I mean, his arms are all over and things. For a tall guy, I think that is not on. I mean, that he really can improve on his technique and he would go more comfortable over the hurdles. It's easy to talk from the side, but that's my take on that. As far as the 110 and the 100 hurdles, again, what I would suggest to coaches is that I think I used to look at tapes of Guy Drew, Grzina Rapstein, you know, the previous generation athletes that do well. Most probably for younger coaches, it doesn't mean anything. But they used to do quite a bit of hurdle endurance, whether it's hurdles closer together, 12 or 15 hurdles, but do it in one step. In other words, I found that the people who were supposed to win didn't have that endurance. They started very fast, but they couldn't maintain it like the 400 hurdlers. In other words, that endurance, that specific hurdle endurance, not running endurance. I mean, that most probably they've got enough of that, but to be able to react very fast over an obstacle, the hurdle, and because those legs get tired, the nerves get tired, everything gets tired, but be able to maintain it. That for me is the biggest part. The last part that I would like to mention, and that is because of what has happened this year with Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles in the gymnastics from America, is that the demands on the athletes from the agents, from the countries, from wanting medals, coaches, everybody wants, and it's money and it's family to provide and whatever, is that we have to look at the mental preparation and we have to look mentally after our athletes. I think some coaches also need some mental look after. But I think that, and I think Frank has said it earlier on, that one person today in a top athlete is most probably not good enough anymore. You need to have your specialist physiotherapist. You need to have your specialist person that helps you with your strength development, maybe even plyometrics. We've got the SSL and all these new fancy names coming through. It is wonderful what they do, but the coach is like Jimson here. He's the orchestra of what is going on there, and he has to look after and see what the people are doing correctly. But he or she has to have a clear picture in their mind where they want the improvement and find the people to help them if they can't do it themselves. That is my take and on what I would suggest to coaches from this Olympics. Thanks.
Wow, Rita, thank you for that analysis. Very, very insightful. May have to take some notes here. So next, the sprints. Maybe Christine wants to speak next, but are we going to see the rise of the long, lanky sprinters like Steve Gardner, Shawnee, Athing Mo, Femke Bol? What are your thoughts on the sprinting? Key learning points and coaching takeaways from this past Olympics, or even from these calls? Christine, if you want to.
Okay, well, to be fair, all my young athletes are quite tall. I mean, I have one who's 6'2". I have 5'11". So I've got quite a few tall sprinters, but what I'm saying, what I have to make them understand is they've got to learn to use their limbs properly and to move them quickly, but to move them efficiently. So what I've taken from this is, well, I've told them to watch it, and I said, what do you know? What do you see? What do you learn? That they can sprint, because a lot of them have been told that they can't sprint, or they need to go into high jump, or they need to go into some other event. But I'm saying that they can sprint. And so what I've done is technique is key from the beginning. I mean, they're young, they're under 15s, under 17s. So I'm just going to develop them and their sprinting ability, but also their technical ability, and then condition them. Because I think what I didn't do well, and looking at all the taller sprinters, I didn't condition them as well as I wanted to this year. So looking at their hips, their ankles, and looking at their core, and like just making sure that I'm covering all the bases, especially when they're young. Because I think when they're young, you need to do those little hopping drills to enable them to go into those big plyometric drills when they get older. But I think you start off with the rudimentary things first, and then you build on. So I'm quite excited because I have got tall girls, and it's given me hope, and I think it's given them hope that they can perform at the highest levels in the sprints, in the 100, in the 200. And I think Usain's given them that. I've got another guy who's 6'4". He's just come to me just out of the blue. I'm going to train him, but the first thing I'm going to implement is technique. That's key. And I'll tell you what is really key for me here. And I'm gonna have to read your names. Gunter, I found you very insightful, and your preparation. You talked about preparation, and you talked about acclimatization. You talked about preparing them for the steeplechase barriers, and what you did and all that. That made me, for sprinting, I mean, I am organized, but you made me see on another level that I have to be even more meticulous in my planning and in what I'm doing. I'm going off track, but I'm going to tell you all the things. Andre Borgstrom, I think you're awesome. And all the insightful information that you've given me, you've taught me throughout this whole week. I don't know any of you, so I've learned, I might have heard your names, but I've never met any of you. And I just found it really insightful. Rita, you are incredible. Just the way you break things down, and I do it, but I need to go to another level now, because what you do is far superior. I mean, I do it to a certain degree, but not the way you do it. And I'm going to study even more. I mean, I love the older sprinters, and I look at the older sprinters really for my technical model. I don't really look at the recent sprinters per se, because I think that Evelyn Ashford is my idol, and I think she's an incredible technician. And I give my athletes, different athletes, to look at that, look like them. I never say, go and look at Usain Bolt if somebody's short, 5'4", what's the point? There's no point. They can't relate to that person. So Rita, you are phenomenal in what you do, and thank you so much. And I must keep in touch with you. Peter Thompson, oh my gosh, for middle distance as well. I found you just blew my mind, Peter, and just listening to you, and I need to get deeper into athletics and understand it and at a different level to where I am. I keep on saying that, but at a different level to where I am now. I do read and I do talk to people and I do listen, but it's very important that you study, you become a master in your craft. I think that's what you guys have taught me. And lastly, Kevin Anklam, you are phenomenal with your stats. I need to keep in touch with you because you've made me realize that, you know, sometimes you need to go to other people. Like you said, Rita, I need all of you around me. You all need to help me at some point to make sure that I stay on point and make sure that I achieve what I need to achieve in my athletes. I'm doing it, but I need to make sure I need to be accountable. And I think you guys have made me become more accountable for what I do, because it's important that I'm accountable. And if I don't know, Rita, as you say, I do go to other people. I do go to other people and ask questions, because if I don't know, you know, I'm not gonna sit there, Frank, and say that I do know. I will go and phone you up and ask you questions, because if I don't know, I must know somebody who does know. So it's been very, very. I've grown so much. I've done nearly every day, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I said to people, I mean, you made me study, Rita. Gunter, I did an hour and a half study before I came on here every day to make sure that because I didn't really understand it completely, and to make sure that I was informed about what I said, because I do know a lot, but I didn't realize how much I'd taken for watching the Diamond Leagues, the Grand Prix, the other previous Olympics. And, you know, I had to study. So thank you so much. And Frank, you know, you need to expose me to more high profile coaches, high performance coaches. That's your job, Frank, in the future. And you, Jamie Lee, because you're in the UK. So I hope that's helped. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Christine. You know, the only reason why I see really far is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, honestly. I mean, I can see really far, but it's because of you guys. But Peter Eriksson, I want to call on you next. Your key takeaways, some learning points from the past week.
I think it's a lot of learning points that we have seen through the week that we've been here. And also, I would like to see a little bit more what did Charles do that was different from what he did in the UK in order to get the medal counts that he got with the Dutch team. And the same is what changed with the Polish guys in order to get up to 9 medals when they sometimes in the past, according to an old throwing Polish coach, they reached 8 in the past. But anyway, that's a couple of things. The other thing is that comes up quite a bit is the shoe impact on the athletes in the long term. How is this new shoes going to impact the athletes, and what needs to be different in the training and the planning with what the results and the outcome of that is, and same maybe also with the surface. The other things is I think we need more understanding of the mental health issues here. It's not just the agents that is, or parents or expectation that are created from the outside. It's also the internal expectation that is done through the social media. I think social media has a lot of negative impact on the mental health of the athletes. And I think we need to know more about what we can do in order to prevent that from happening, because I've seen a lot of different Canadian sports right now. I mean, we have more psychiatrists on staff than we have sports psychologists. And that's a scary notion, really. And then the final one that I talked about earlier, the DSD and the transgender athletes, we need more independent research so we understand how this is impacting us and the sport, and how it's impacting all the numbers that comes up in animals from IOC or World Athletics. So I think it's a lot of learnings that we have to work on in the future.
Well, great. Thank you, Peter. That's insightful. 3 more panelists. Anders Borgstrom, your final comments overall coaching these past Olympics.
In short words, I just want to underline what's already said, and I make it in 2 words: be prepared. and be prepared for the unexpected. I think that underlines what Frank said, Rita, Gunter, and so on. And to be very, very precise about a couple of things. How can we as coaches influence on, for example, surface matters, time schedule matters? We saw, for example, we have 2 field events that are crossing the running oval. That's high jump and javelin throwing.
Yeah.
What should you think about? Oh, don't put a 10,000 meter race at the same time as high jump and javelin throwing, because that causes problems. We should be able as coaches to make it a little bit more easy for athletes in the field events and try to push for a better time schedule. I think that's it.
Great. No, thank you. I definitely agree with you. I've complained about scheduling all week long. If you're here all week, I complain about it. So I didn't know why. I would hate to be a high jumper and see a 10,000 meter. But I don't know. A couple more people. Peter Thompson, maybe your final thoughts on the week and some coaching takeaways from the last 8 days.
Thanks, Jimson. Yeah, it's really good listening to all of your reflections and your inputs through this last week. I think of the various kind of meetings of coaches I've been to this past week, this group has been the most focused with the skillful inputs and the appropriate amount of discussion, which I think is really good. And I think one of the challenges we have is this last week, the thing that's really emphasized to me is we knew it was going to be a situation with these kinetic elements underneath our feet. The kinetic shoes were going to be part of the story. The track came in as a significant story, and the interface between these 2 kinetic elements of the track and the spikes and the shoes becomes a big part of the story, which I think really puts a mist around what we should be considering as coaches, which is, if these kinetic elements provide so much improvement in performance, then let's go back into the body and say, how are we developing the biokinetic abilities of the athlete? The kinetic chain of the human body has got an incredible capacity to store and return energy. Over the last decade, we've had an explosion of research into the way tissues create, absorb, and transfer strain during activity. So for the first time, we were able to see this kind of in vivo in the living body, whereas previously all the research was looking at cadavers, and cadavers, as we know, are fairly inelastic animals. And so, kind of what we're finding out now is for example, the contribution of the aponeuroses, and the aponeuroses are tissues which we never learned about as young coaches, but the coaches of the future need to know that it's not the muscle tendon unit that's important, it's the muscle tendon aponeurosis unit, which is important, and how we develop that. And so we're doing a lot of work on that, and stiffness, controlling stiffness. So I think as a coach, it's emphasized to me more that we need to get our developing coaches really understanding what's happening inside the body for elastic energy, and not so much being obsessed with what's happening outside with the shoes and the tracks, and letting world athletics, with our inputs, hopefully, come to some kind of way of controlling that. But what we can control is how we develop our athletes. And one of the things I've suggested here in the US is that we should not be necessarily training in the shoes. And I would like to see a recommendation for the national high schools here that young athletes 19 and under are not allowed to wear carbon-plated footwear in either training or competition, because I think it interferes with the development of their own biokinetic abilities. So that's my big takeaway from this week, I think, which is we've got an opportunity here to kind of look at the technology and say, isn't it wonderful? Or we've got an opportunity to say, yes, that's wonderful, and it emphasizes what we have within ourselves that perhaps is not as best developed as it could be.
No, wonderful analysis, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for that. Just want to echo on what Peter Eriksson said about the success of Poland. 9 medals total, 4 of them gold. What better person to ask about Poland than Piotr Hasek? Comments on Poland and success?
Yes, I have few things what I will actually like to mention. if we look into Poland, the potential was always in the last 3-4 games, but they never deliver. And always was pressure for the athletes because if you win the medals in Olympics, you have the pension, life pension, when you retired, when you're 40. So always that big pressure was on the athletes. But the last 6-7 years, the funding which actually coming to athletics give very comfortable situation who people with being sub-elite also. And the pressure actually was taken down. The federation actually can work with the plans, what they have, long-term plans ahead, without any doubt how will be next year. Either funding is each year, but the political situation actually, and political sports minister, which was actually previous athletes, who is now in the VIDA director, he actually understands what is needed to deliver, and was actually funding was very stable, and it probably will increase after the games. I'm only a little bit worried about what will happen now, because we have the same in 2009 in Berlin. We have very big success and people actually celebrate too long. I hope they will make the lesson. And I hope they will not looking for anything to copy, because between 2009, when I was working, they want to copy GB system, when all the coaches said that is wrong, but politicians told us we need to copy GB system. And the 3 years we are actually fighting with all the bureaucracy and everything. And after actually London, that was gone. And that's actually helped. And I will say, we actually, if I know the people who are actually driving the performance team, and I know all the coaches, I think so they all ready to navigate in the chaos situation, and they always will be 2 steps ahead. So they know how to plan it. They have very good support team from the medical side, which is also developed in last 10 years. They make the lesson from all previous games, all previous championships regarding acclimatization and everything. So there was actually one of the best acclimatization camp for the Polish team at the moment. And what is important, and I need to mention, we never changed coach education system in Poland. We continue last 30, 40, 50 years the same. We just upgraded it based on science and experience. We not make every 3 years new something thing. We just continue the same. And I'm proud actually that system is actually works, because it shows. And what is important to mention, that 75% of the medals coming from the coaches who are around 40 years old. This is new wave of the coaches coming in Poland.
Yeah, no, well, I think Canada's best gift from Poland was Gerard Mock.
Yeah, he was. And you know, Gerard Mock actually created the pathway for 400 in Poland, which my coach was taken and new coaches actually taken. This is a lot of things we actually learn from Mach, what we're using, but we upgraded the knowledge and the science and experience, what we know.
No, most definitely. Kevin Ankrum, late panelist, final thoughts maybe about the week or game?
For me, just a couple brief things. I don't want to talk a leg off a wooden horse, but medals aren't easy. And I think what's really great about this opportunity, this forum, it's just the openness of the coaches. If you were here, you were participating, you were listening, you want to learn something. And I think, again, you know, thank you all for putting this together and putting this on, because, you know, learning, and, you know, even I always hated, obviously, as a head coach or performance director, when a coach came to me and says, well, I'm going to keep everything I've got that I've won this medal with private. Well, not everyone can, you know, that's the worst thing. I know, Frank, you hate that as well, too, to, you know, not to share that information. And I'm all about the best coaches should share. And this is a great opportunity to continue to share. So I thank everybody here for sharing with their insights of what's going on. Probably the last thing that I think is really important, I think most of our systems and structures and coaches and athletes try to go through this post period of review. It's never effective unless you've done a pre-review. It's funny how things have changed about how many athletes that if you just do a post review, what they thought they had, oh, hey, is everything great? yeah, everything's great. They get to the games, and then the things to complain about are the things that they said that they didn't have before the games. So one of the good things that I always try to do is have a pre-review of the year, what you're doing during the games, before the games, and then the post-review is a comparison and a build off of what you had in pre and how did we match and how we can do better moving forward. So, again, a post review is only as good as the pre-review that you have for that season and for those games. So I think that's big for coaches and systems and structures to kind of move forward. But yeah, over in that, like I said, I just want to keep emphasizing, be open about your coaching, be open to share, because I think that's the only way, no matter what age you are, no matter what you're doing, or what level of coaching you're at, you're always going to learn something. And if you think that you've learned it all, well, then it's time to move on.
Good point there. Christine, quick comment on, I think, what Peter or Piotr said about Poland. Was that your hand up, Christine?
Actually, I do know a little bit about Poland, not as much as Piotr, obviously. But what my athlete was telling me is that they work together, they train together a lot. Well, the 4x4 girls definitely train together a lot, and they do a lot of things. So they're not separate. Like, so in the UK, we're all over the place. Some are in America, some are up in Scotland, some are down in London. But they've drawn them together. The Dutch have done exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. And they all the 4x4 girls and the sprinters, Charles has brought them all together, but he's also got some really, really high profile coaches coming over to the Netherlands to coach them. So the reason that's one of the reasons why they have improved. And I don't know if that would work for every nation, but I think that's one of the reasons why it's worked for them. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the improvement, because there's a camaraderie, there's a support unit. And as we talked about mental health, there's that's come about. So they've got those people who know them, who see them every day, who know their ins and outs, their highs and lows. They know where they're going, they know what they're doing. They trust one another. And if you watch when they celebrate, their celebration is different, because even from the Europeans, and you watch them from the Europeans coming into this now, you see a cohesion that you didn't see before. And so I think that's one of the reasons why they are succeeding, they're being successful, and they're being consistently successful.
Yeah. Piotr, comments on that?
Christine, I will tell you that
oh, you're on mute. Oh, sorry.
I will tell you, the system didn't change regarding relays since I was athletes. We actually spending around 200, 250 days together to train. And that's actually give us one thing: we know each other, we trust each other, and we create the big team spirit, which actually lifting everyone 1 second faster. And that's for the 4x4 and also 4x1. I have seen the last few years when the guys actually team folding out with the pieces, and they didn't deliver because they've been starting training in small groups. And even they have one of the best coach possible to work, but some personal coaches have the big ego. Mm-hmm. And with the ladies, what's happened last few years, they actually starting the all personal coaches agree to work with the coach. And they have individual programs, the coaches supporting the team, they are with the team. Most of the personal coaches actually travel also with the team, but there's the one lead coach, and this works. And I was working in Scotland for a few years, and I actually prepared my group athletes for the Commonwealth in Glasgow, when they actually 3 athletes of mine ran actually 3:03, and no one believed they will broken the old records 3:05. But I said, we work 3 years together. And I said, this is the team spirit when you want to build. And if you're looking at the Netherlands, Lauren, he made that. He made that a little bit before in the Switzerland. The same with the short relay and the 4x4 ladies before he moved to the Netherlands. And I know it will happen the same, because they have the deep of the individual athletes, but you need to bring them together and tell everyone, individual, you have maybe chance, but as a team, you can win something. And see that the guys from the Netherlands, individual, they have only one guy in the final. But as a team, they deliver huge results.
Yeah, definitely. Gunter, your comments on that?
Maybe I got Christine wrong, but you mentioned that XY received or developed amazing results by bringing in foreign coaches. I would be very skeptical about this, to bring it out of the European context, so I don't get anybody annoyed. China or India, also the medal from India in javelin throw is definitely the result of the German coach and the German biomechanics who are working there since years. As much I'm happy for India, if they're not manage to transfer the competence of this to experts, to their local coaches, we will have no sustainability. These people will one day, they will not stay in India for a lifetime unless they marry like our Dutch coach. But if you have a system which is just coaching the athlete and not coaching the coach, mentoring, you cannot achieve a sustainable system. I'm happy to hear about consistency in training and coach education system. But I believe that it should not be that we use coaches as mercenaries to produce medals. This comes almost back to the Roman Parliament census. No, we need to develop our local coaches. And the only way to do this in a sustainable way is you don't hire a coach, you hire a mentor. So the mentor is a very different type of animal. He will sign a contract to make himself redundant. This is his objective. Most coaches you hire for a boat, they come and want to be there. They want to be for good. They want to stay 4, 8, 10 years and extend their good contracts. A mentor is coming to be replaced as soon as possible from his local counterpart, who then, if the mentor was excellent, is not only replacing him, but provides a better work than the mentor. Thank you very much.
Okay, Gunter, thank you for that. On that note, Frank, perhaps you can close up the sessions, final words and thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Well, what a fantastic session this has been. I really, really enjoyed the inputs from our panelists there. So let me start really by thanking the panelists, first of all. Rita, fantastic job. Many of you will, of course, have gathered by this time that Rita is quite passionate about hurdles, so much so that she christened her daughter Grazina after Grazina Rabczyn, the famous Polish sprint hurdler. Christine, great job. Thank you for your input. Particularly enjoyed that last session where you actually have demonstrated immense humility as well as careful thought in how you will develop yourself. Laura, didn't hear much from you, but really pleased to meet you. And I'm hoping we're going to see quite a bit of each other in the future. Peter Thompson, Peter Stanley, and Peter Eriksson, the three Peters, fantastic contributions for all of you. Gunter, where would we be, my friend, without you? Where would we be? I mean, we've known each other for a long time, but every time we come together, I promise you, I learn even more than I learned the last time. Sean Pickering, great to have him here. I guess he's still trying to catch up with his sleep. Herbert, really good to see you again, my friend. Outstanding contribution. Anders, I agree with Christine. Christina, really solid, insightful stuff, born of serious experience out there. Dalton Grant, we didn't hear very much from him, but Dalton's a pretty special guy. Keep in touch with him if you want to sort of keep on your toes. Danny Cornelius, I've known Danny for quite a while now, but he has got serious depth of knowledge. Kevin, in terms of statistics and stuff, worthwhile you keeping in touch with him, mate, because he's red hot. Martin Bingisser, I've met Martin a couple of times now in different sports, and he has serious depth across all sports of understanding of what I call athleticism, which is, if you like, another word for athletic strength and conditioning. Wolfgang Richtoff, what can I say about Wolfgang? And once so much depth of understanding and perceptions in high jump. And also, I did recommend to you before, if you're interested in high jump and pole vault at all, His conference in November will be absolutely magic. If you can get to Cologne, do it. Piotr, well, we've known each other for some time, my young friend. I've always seen you as tomorrow's great coach. So thank you for your insights. You have wisdom far beyond your years. I always enjoy your company, and I hope we'll enjoy even more of that in the future. Kevin, he joined us late on in this, but he is now going to be definitely a core member of our team going forward. Giacomo, what can I say for you, my friend? You've made all of this possible, putting it all together. And then finally, Jimson. I mean, you have been a panelist as well as a conductor here. Your insights, your questioning to create insights have been outstanding. What a fantastic experience this has been. We've been the only association to try every night. I really understand other associations not doing that because of the shortness of time, but I know that we'll all be doing that in the future. We've learned so many things from China, from Southeast Asia and South Asia, from Oceania, from Nakatka, and of course from Europe, in how to make this stuff work in the future. All I can say to you is this: if you believe in what we are doing here and you want it to grow, first of all, keep in touch with European Athletics Coaching Association's Coaches Club. I believe we're going to be the best, but whatever, Giacomo's created something special there. Stay in touch with that, because that's how we're going to grow. I said earlier today to another audience, something I'll say to you now. We're in the dawn here of creating a new world for coaches. That's what the coaches associations are all about. But that will only happen through you. I learned a long time ago to respect a very special quote from Albert Schweitzer. It's not always to the sower of seeds to reap the harvest. Sometimes it's far more important to be the people who sow the seeds than those who will reap the harvest. And what I'm asking you to be is the sower of seeds to create a great, great new future for coaching in track and field athletics. GACA and your coaches associations are there for you, but they're also there because of you. You will make them strong and you will make it grow forward. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating this week. I know we've started something very, very special. And once again, my friend, you've done an outstanding good job, Jimson. You're definitely the maestro, my friend. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Thank you. Michael Bennett, quick comments. We're over time. I know. Michael, your hand's up. Any last thoughts?
Yes, I just want to say this has been a great series of meetings. They've been very insightful, and I definitely look forward to connecting with you all to be in the future. It's definitely been good information, very insightful, and learned a lot from the different conversations we've had, and look forward to connecting with you all later in the future, either about coaching or about sports science. It was great, Jensen.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, no, thank you. So on closing, I get the final goodbye button here, which I'm very sad to do, but I just want to say this is not the end. This is just the beginning, because we're going to do this again. We have your emails. Frank has your emails. We have the website. We'll do this again. It may not be every day like we did this week, but it'll be maybe once a month. We'll find a time and we'll make it happen. I think this is definitely the future. I look forward to doing this again. I even think, even if we do an in-person conference, if I can get there, I can set up my equipment and do it remotely as well. So it would be a both dual in-person and remote thing. So I think technology is good. We can make advantage of it. And what can I say? I'm just blown away. I've had the most wonderful, 9 days of my life here. I wish I was in Tokyo, but none of us could go except for Gunter and Sean Pickering. But I think it's just a wonderful time. Ibrahim, we're closing up. You have final comments, like 10 seconds?
Jimson, I think on behalf of Africa, I know I've not been a consistent participant of this forum, but on behalf of Africa, I want to thank you very much. I think we should partner when you are organizing these events. think of us in Africa so that we participate. I want to thank Gunter, Peter Thompson, and the entire team for really, Gunter have really supported us. The medals which we won in Olympics, I think is partly contributed by those two I've mentioned. So thank you very much. Sorry, I haven't contributed a lot. Next round, I think I'll participate fully. Thank you, Jameson.
No, you're very welcome. Frank Dick, back to you quickly.
Yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that last contribution.
Yeah.
Giacomo, Jimson, please let's get a hold of this young man as soon as possible, because I will need him with Des Varden and Danny Cornelius and Gunter to reestablish the African Athletics Coaches Association. And you're absolutely right. We are more than happy to partner with you. On behalf of Richie, Des Varden, Terry Crawford, and Wendy Trevelyan, who've been listening in here and who are part of the GACA strategic board, thank you for that. We're really pleased about that, because you are going to be the final part of the equation that will create the global alliance of coaches associations. Great job. Thank you for the opportunity, for the extra words, Jimson. Thank you.
No problem. Rajiv, final comments, 10 seconds?
Yeah, sorry, we just ended ours. We went a little over, had some great commentary by coaches, and so a couple of people may be popping in, but just wanted to say hi to you all. We had 3 successful NACAC track coaches sort of summaries and discussions, and I've listened to several of these, so Jimson, great job here. So we just wanted to say hi. If anybody wants, Jimson, if you can stay on 3 or 4 more minutes, maybe some people that want to come in and say hi. Less romantic, I see.
Yeah. No, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer, but I just want to close up the official session. It'd be great. And I do want to share all the links to your conference. There was a Cologne conference, the Asia Initiative, the Oceanus. So there's a lot of conferences here. Rajiv, Joshi, final comments? You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Coach Frank. Thank you to my mentor, Mr. Gunter. And thank you for a wonderful opportunity. And I look forward to join the group. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, on that note, I'm going to stay on a few more minutes with the Richie's group here. But for everyone else here, once again, thank you. You made a wonderful contributions. Wonderful week, and hope to see you all. Well, I'll see you all maybe in a month's time online, but I hope to be in Paris in 3 years and be there in person to watch it. But we'll make this happen again. Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to stay on. So again, thank you all. If you want to drop off, that's fine. But I'm going to stick around and have an informal social with Richie's group and ask any questions. I'll keep moderating and keep this flowing.
Yeah, we have people from Spanish and English speaking, so that's kind of the point. Say hi to some of the people in Europe and other places, but thank you for having us, and Rita in South Africa and other places.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording now so we can